Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Redi Tlhabi. It's good to be with you again. I'm a journalist and broadcaster from South Africa, and I feel very honored to be in your company again. I say again because we were together at the invitation of AGRA to celebrate women trailblazers in agriculture and agribusiness on the African continent. This was on International Women's Day in March. It was a great and inspiring platform to be a part of. So today we gather again to reflect, discuss, and add momentum to the mammoth task of empowering women to grow their agri-enterprises. We'll have high-level presentations as well as hear from women who are leaders of their own enterprises. And there's also, of course, some breakaway sessions which are organized carefully along some very pertinent and relevant themes. We'll have those breakaways. You will come back and report back to the entire platform. So why are we doing this? Why is AGRA on this journey and high-level dialogue? So we do know that women continue to experience greater constraints than men in establishing, operating, and growing their agri-enterprises. Now, this is a constraint largely attributed to gendered underpinnings. We know that. We see it in so many other areas as well. What do these constraints mean? Well, they trap women's agri-enterprises in a vicious cycle of underperformance, and this leads to limited growth prospects. And out of the multiple constraints, access to finance is frequently identified as a critical barrier for women, a critical barrier to their growth and resilience. So currently, just a landscape analysis, which I think is very important for context, there is a finance gap that critically hampers the growth of agri-SMEs that are led by women in particular. And of course, these sets of challenges and their drivers affect women disproportionately, despite their businesses providing, and this is always the irony, right? Despite their businesses, women-led businesses providing a key source of income for households. So AGRA is very involved in this work, as we know, and AGRA asserts that if productive potential of the continent can really be our priority, then we will be able to help women-led agribusinesses grow into more productive enterprises, which will benefit the women-led businesses, which will benefit communities, benefit our economies, and benefit the continent as a whole. I do want to spend a few minutes just driving the point home that this is not just another high-level dialogue. There is something unique about it, and we need to be mindful of it. It is rooted in country-level consultations. Women agri-food entrepreneurs, women at grassroots level came together in country-level dialogues facilitated by AGRA and its partners to hear from women themselves. So there's no talking down. It is women leading the dialogue and the conversations themselves and taking into account their unique regional circumstances. Now, the second unique feature of these country-level dialogues, and this is the culmination thereof, is that other stakeholders and partners were in the room. They were brought into the same country-level dialogue. So momentum is built to have women agri-food entrepreneurs given a platform and an opportunity to speak directly to partners and stakeholders like governments, financing partners, regional and national agri-food buyers, development partners. This was so crucial in creating a better understanding of needs and opportunities. And this, of course, creates the opportunity to find a sustainable and appropriate solution. So I hope you will have that in mind as we get into our presentations and our speeches today. We are using the outcomes of these regional consultations during this high-level dialogue. We will be consolidating the voices of women agri-food entrepreneurs across the African continent, share emerging issues, insights, and solutions to inform continental forums and the UN Food Systems Dialogue. So with that background in mind, I hope that you are more energized and that we will be able to elevate the level of debate as we approach our program. I must just say, I'm always interested to have these kind of participatory engagements where we're not just here talking to you, but that you participate, you give us your views, you give us your insights, you give us your observations. So we are now adept at using technology to connect from all corners of the world. So feel free to use the Zoom chat room to post your comments, to post your questions. In between all of that, I will glance at them and share them with everybody else so that your presence here is acknowledged and so that your voice is heard today as well. And then, because we have such a rich and full program, I'm going to ask you to please stick to the allocated time. When you have a presentation of 5 minutes, keep it to 5 minutes. When we are doing the country level pitches from trailblazing women CEO and MDs in agribusiness, if you have 2 minutes, please use up that 2 minutes and nothing more. The feedback sessions as well, again, I'm going to ask that we stick to the allocated time so that we give true meaning to the program that has been so diligently put together for you by AGRA and its partners. So without much ado, it's a pleasure to welcome today Dr. Fadel Diame, who is the AGRA Deputy President. Please remember to unmute yourself before you speak. Dr. Diame, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Reddy. It's great to meet again after the March session. I concur, it was an impressive session. This afternoon is my great pleasure and honor to welcome all the, the great speakers that you have aligned, starting with my own boss, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who is also will be speaking in her capacity as Special Envoy of the Director General of the United Nations for the Food System Summit. My sister and friend, Dr. Jemima Njuki, IFPRI Africa Director and Gender Labor for the UN System Summit. Jemima, it's great to see you again. Welcome. I also want to send a special welcome to Michael Mishena. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name, Michael, poorly. Bear with me, that's my Mandinka accent. But Michael is the Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Bureau for Resilience and Food Security, USAID. But I also want to welcome all the other important speakers for today's session. So on behalf of AGRA and all our partners, I really want to welcome all the participants. Reddy and colleague, you realize that we have a large number of people who connect to this call, which really speaks to the significance of these topics and how listening to women's voice, especially women entrepreneurs' voice, is critical if we are going to build a better food system. So I would like to basically also just refer a few facts, and I will not be very long. I think we all know the facts, that women in general represent the majority of people in agriculture. Sorry, Anna, can you mute? Anna Zinga? Yes, thank you. I think we all know the facts. Women represent the majority, at least 50% of the agricultural labor. They produce the food that we eat, they preserve the food, and they also take care of our nutrition. They play a significant role in the trade of food across our countries, which makes sure that we match the surplus area with the deficit area, which is a critical dimension of Africa's resilience, especially after COVID. However, and that's the really unfortunate irony, women suffer significant disadvantages in the way they access resources, the way they run their businesses, and we actually have recorded a yield gap of 20 to 30% between men and women farmers. So that's one of the most striking factors that we are dealing with that we need to address. Furthermore, the recent World Bank study has shown that while women own nearly 2/3 of all the informal micro enterprises across the continent, which means that they have the entrepreneurial capabilities. There is no doubt about it. They operate under extremely difficult conditions. But at the same time, it means that they perform, under more difficult conditions than their male counterpart. So the challenge they are faced are enormous. I mean, ranging from access to initial finance, limited business skill, limited time constraint due to the other commitment and responsibility that they have at the family level, but for society as a whole, which means they spend less time on their business. In addition, we also know that many of our society, unfortunately, still impose very strict burden and limitation to women, which really don't allow them to optimize their learning through the interaction with other peers. Their capability and aspiration are therefore very largely constrained. Even on the policy level, most policies still don't find it useful to listen to specific needs for women, except for a few countries that make specific effort to do it. They consider that there is a considerable cost of listening to all voices. Yet we all know the opportunity cost of not listening to everybody are even higher. And this is where I really want to salute and appreciate the commitment of our Piata partners. AGRAs and Piata partners are totally committed in bridging the productivity gaps. And specific investment made by partners like USAID, BMGF, Rockefeller, FCDO, the German Corporation, etc., provide tangible example of how dedicated support delivers significant results. And I think that's the good news that we can build on. I want to salute how the value for her that we are really building on today provide new opportunity to highlight successful, powerful entrepreneurial women who are doing the business and doing it well, providing a platform that connects them to resources and to partners, give us an opportunity to listen to their voices, and enable them to contribute to building stronger and more resilient and more equitable agri-food system. And we will hear from them. And I like what you said earlier, Reddy. We're lucky that we had country consultation that will be listened to today and will give us a great opportunity to inform the agenda for transforming the landscape, especially in the context of the UN food system. I just want to say that as AGRA, we are already engaged in several of the action track of the UN food system. Particularly, we support the country dialogues. A number of African countries, as we speak, at least 36 of the African countries have already engaged in the process. And we see a lot of dynamism across the different work stream. And it's really great to see that this specific independent dialogue with focus on the value for her and the opportunity to hear about the great story and the wisdom from women entrepreneurs across the continent. I want to end with this few words. I mean, this is an important meeting. And if this is a call to action, Africa is unlikely to meet our commitment to the SDG and to all other commitment, Malabo, etc., if we don't address the issue faced by women entrepreneurs and women farmers. This is our opportunities. With this few words, I thank you for your attention and look forward to a great discussion. Over to you, Reddy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ndiame. I think it's very important that we remind ourselves of what is at stake if we don't achieve our goals. And thank you so much for reminding us that the gathering today, the plans and the implementation are so crucial because the sustainability, the survival of our continent rests on us empowering women in every area possible. Thanks indeed. And again, I was moved by your words where you said that the costs of not listening are so much greater than investing in platforms that allow us to listen, to debate, to hear each other, and to implement the solutions that are needed. It is far more costly not to listen and act. Thanks indeed for that. And with that, it is a pleasure to welcome Ms. Sabdio Dido Bashuna, Head of Gender and Inclusiveness at AGRA, and really keen to hear the theme value for her and the important background around the country consultations and contributions that I alluded to in my introduction. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Reddy. And hello to everyone. I'm very, very happy to be here today, this afternoon. I'm based in Kigali, Rwanda, to be joining this group of partners, friends, but also our high-level guests in exploring, understanding, and crafting way forward in how we can support the women on the continent, the women in agriculture, the women in agri-enterprise, to explore their potential, to utilize all the resources there is to grow wealth, to reduce poverty. This is our cause, this is our calling. And I would just like to recognize, of course, all our high-level guests, speakers, and all protocols observed. We are hosting this event today, of course, as an independent dialogue under the Food Systems Summit. But the dialogue is initiated by the Value for Her initiative. This is AGRA's initiative that is aimed at supporting women in agriculture and women in agribusiness, because we know that if we do not address the needs of women, just as if we do not address the needs of smallholder farmers, we will 10 years from now still be talking about poverty, we will be talking about malnutrition, we will be talking about hunger, and we just have to address this. And the Food Systems Dialogue has given us this chance to again relook at some of these pain points and to really come up with solutions, and not just solutions, but game-changing solutions that we can use to address this. So the Value for Her initiative, again, this is AGRA's initiative. We are looking at how to assist, facilitate, catalyze, support for women entrepreneurs to increase profitability, to increase incomes, to build wealth, and of course to reduce poverty. But we also are looking at how to build voice and agency and empowerment. So it's a platform. It's a platform that structures, that organizes, that gives the kind of capital that women need to engage in agriculture and agribusiness. And through this engagement, we are hoping to really alter the business environment and the landscape in agriculture in terms of how women access productive resources like land, like finance, like training, like extension, but also on the entrepreneurship side, how they access trade opportunities, how they access market opportunities, how they access finance and capital, and how they access information. So the platform Value for Her is powered by a digital system. We call it Value for Her Connect, and it has a series of pillars, 5 pillars. Women to women pillar, this really is the connection between women. The women to market, this is how women access markets and how they can access structured markets, how they can access market information, how they can be part of supply chains that bring income, that bring learning, that bring connection. It's about women and know-how. How do they access skill? How do they access knowledge? How do they access capacity? It's about women to finance. How can women access financing and capital that is tailored to their businesses, to their business needs, and of course, women to technology. So this is what the Value for Her platform offers. These are all different trajectories of support, integrated support that we believe are crucial if the women's businesses are going to succeed. So back to the country consultations, again, Reddy and Dr. Fadel made reference to this. We know that for any change process to be rooted and to really be transformational, we need to understand the needs, the circumstances, and the aspirations of the people involved. And in this case, the women of Africa, the women in agriculture. So we went into the 11 countries where AGRA is active, and we facilitated this dialogue between women entrepreneurs, women in agriculture, and the different stakeholders in the country. And through this engagement, we reached nearly 1,700 partners and stakeholders. The countries, of course, are the 11 countries where AGRA is active. The idea was to foster strong networks and create a platform of engagement for women to speak and to be heard and to harness their collective capability to shape the landscape. This is the landscape in relation to access to the different services they need, and also in terms of the different market opportunities, the different trade opportunities. This is the landscape that we would like to share through this engagement. And the platform allows this engagement. It's a tool, it's a power in the hands of women to be able to make this transformation. So, and of course, we are doing a number of other things under our Value for Her program. You probably have seen us with the ARISE program. The ARISE program is an investment readiness, is business leadership, and is the pitch coaching support that is led by one of our partners, Renew. And this is again one of the one of the programs within the Value for Her initiative, where we're building capacity, what we call Women to Know How. And you have also probably heard about the very many advocacy initiatives we have engaged in. And through this, we've been able to reach around 3,000 other participants. Again, talking about changing the landscape, this is so crucial. Now, in terms of the outcomes of the country dialogues, and you will hear it shortly from the women entrepreneurs themselves, but there are broadly issues around how the socialization of women and the impact this has on their confidence, their self-esteem, but their ability and their capacity to really put their businesses on the growth path. This is one major limitation. The other limitation, of course, is the fact that they're coming in from a low level of education. And this impacts on technical skills, but it also impacts on leadership and managerial skills. And this is one thing that explains why the women's businesses remain small and they don't grow, because the capacity that is needed isn't there. The issue around access to affordable and innovative finance, this is again crucial, is not only about the products themselves, but it's also the capacity to utilize these products and the finance that is coming into the business and to use it to grow the business. This is another challenge. Information and network, very, very crucial for business growth. This was also raised as a key issue. And of course, access to land and other productive assets, and the policies, institutional, regulatory environment in a number of our countries need to be addressed. So the call to action then is really looking at the policy implementation to ensure that favorable gender policies are operationalized, addressing the legal dualism for formulation of policies that address cultural interference in policy implementation. We're looking at capacity building. But this is not only the technical skills, but also the soft skills. We're talking about confidence. We're talking about self-esteem. How can we go beyond the technical to really the person, to help the person to come out and to have this confidence to walk this journey? There's, of course, the issue around the use of ICT and the fact that we know ICTs and digital technologies can be a solution in a number of these issues. And looking at extension and advisory services, financial and business support, and of course, research and innovation that progresses the gender in business agenda, the women in business agenda. So these are the things that the country consultations are calling for. And I hope that through this food systems dialogue, we will be able to come up with some of the game-changing solutions that we can also propose as a continent, as the women of Africa, to the Food Systems Secretariat, so that these issues are engaged with. Of course, our call is not only to the Food Systems Dialogue, it is also to the continental bodies and country policies and country stakeholders. Thank you very much, and over to you, Ruby.
Thank you so very much. Really inspired by your work and the picture that you are painting. And I know that in our preparations, when we meet, when we chat, you're very, very passionate about amplifying the voice of women, celebrating their achievements, and giving them their due titles that reflect how they've successfully navigated their way around these obstacles. But of course, I always say that when we discuss the hardships and the obstacles and the barriers towards the empowerment of women, it's good to reflect, it's good to talk about that, but I want to live in a country where we are no longer being praised as women for defying the odds, for making it despite all the obstacles. I do want to live in a world where we are successful in our businesses, we are successful in accessing finances, accessing markets, accessing the jobs that we want, because it is normal to be so, not because we have to move mountains in order to get there. So responding to the challenge that you've laid out in your presentation is absolutely important. And it's Dido Bashuna, Head of Gender and Inclusiveness at AGRA. Now we're getting on to this part of our gathering today. We're going to hear from high-level speakers. High-level dialogue speeches are beginning now. Each speaker will come one after the other, and you'll have 5 minutes to address us and make your presentation today. And I ask you all to get ready, if you know that your name is on this particular segment, to get us started with that. I call again Dr. Fadel Ndiame, Deputy President, AGRA. He will be followed by Dr. Agnes Kalibata, Special Envoy of the UN Secretary General for the 2021 Food Systems Summit. You will come on next. Dr. Ndiame, over to you again.
Thank you very much, Reddy. I think mine is basically to introduce my boss, Dr. Kalibata. I think it's a privilege to have the special envoy for the food system, who is a woman leader, a strong leader, my boss, but who's also who's the face of this massive program initiative that will transform the future of food. So with that, without further ado, let me just give the floor to Dr. Kalibata. Over to you, Agnes. Thank you.
Thank you, Fadel. Thank you for those welcome remarks. Let me start by thanking all the partners that have participated in really ensuring that we have this high-level event, our AGRA teams, you, Fadel, but also IFPRI as a partner in really helping us sharpen and have a conversation around the place and role of women in agribusinesses and food trade. Let me also thank our other partners, Michael, USAID, for coming in here to join us and really add your voice on the struggles, but also the aspirations that women have that we are all trying to come through on. And let me thank Jemima Njuki for as the coordinator, if I might say, use the word coordinator of the work that is happening in the Food Systems Summit on gender, for helping us advance this work from a food systems perspective, but also from the perspective of IFPRI. Now, let me talk about gender really from two perspectives. First of all, we've seen from a COVID perspective that women businesses have suffered a lot. Last year, I think I mentioned this earlier, but let me just mention the numbers again. And I would really like to see where we up this number, we update these numbers so that we get a true sense of what women businesses have suffered or experienced in the days during COVID. When we did, halfway through last year, when we did a survey to get a sense of what was happening with women businesses, we found that 50% of the businesses had already lost some form of revenue, one or the other. 28% of the businesses were temporarily closed, and 15% of women businesses were permanently closed. Now, it would be good today to update 1 year and a half since COVID started and got onto the continent. It would be good to update and see what is happening from a women business perspective, because I believe there's a lot that is going on. There are a number of instruments that were put in place, but are these instruments deep enough? Are they reaching these women? Are they able to support women businesses to ensure that they survive? Are there lessons we can learn that we can put forward for our governments to consider in terms of advancing these businesses? So that is one piece of work that we really need to get on top of and make sure that the whole building back better is understood from a true cost to businesses, to women especially. What did it really cost women going into this pandemic and coming out of it? I also want to talk about this work from a perspective of, how do we really create space for women from a business perspective, and how do we ensure that once those spaces are created, they have value, we create value around those spaces. So a lot of women work in rural areas in agricultural systems, which agricultural systems are not as productive as they should be. AGRA works in increasing productivity for these agricultural systems, but really just ensuring that we are not increasing productivity per se, that we are being attentive to crops that are grown by women. Go to just a few kilometers from here, where my office is here in Kenya. Women in Kiambu will tell you they are growing maize because it's a female crop, and their husbands are growing coffee because coffee is for men. And I tell you the only reason coffee is for men is because it pays more and it pays better. You go to West Africa, you find that cowpeas are for women and rice is for men for the same reasons. So we need to invest and be very clear around investing for women and giving value to women in the things they do. But the whole idea of increasing productivity also has another dimension. We need to deal with the question of hunger. We are not producing enough to address hunger and the depth of hunger. In our communities, 70 million children are still born to women that are malnourished. And we know it, if many of you from an African perspective, we know that if the food is not enough at home, the woman will usually eat last, or sometimes not eat at all. We need to deal with this problem. Why would it be that we leave this burden to be a women burden alone? We need to give them value in the markets, and giving them value in the markets really comes from a number of places, but one of the most important probably is around finance and how women access finance. I've seen the government of Kenya recently put in place a reduced interest rate on women and youth, and I applaud that effort to encourage women and youth SMEs to be able to access funding. But there's also this whole idea of assets and increasing the ability of women to have assets, especially land that they own, that they can use in terms of business as well. We need to increase their capacity. We talked about, I think Sabdio talked about it, and really ensuring that the women have access to capacity and skills. And that's why I'm really proud of the work that we are doing at AGRA through Value for Her, just ensuring that we create a platform that gives them the opportunity to have access to whatever is out there, and also a platform to just be able to talk about the challenges they're having and how they can overcome these challenges. So really my last point here is, we need to understand the challenges and opportunities women have, and we need to be prepared to drive policies that will encourage more investments in women and women-led enterprises. And we've started a little bit of that work, and we need to double down on that as we go into the Food Systems Summit, really to think through how investing in food systems is also about investing in opening up opportunities and markets for women. So I thank you again for inviting me, and I thank you again for thinking about this opportunity for us to have this conversation, and really encourage all of us to double down and make sure that we give value to women in the businesses they do. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, Special Envoy of the UN Secretary General for the 2021 Food Systems Summit. I was smiling when you were talking about how women are often the last ones to eat. When there's a shortage of food, they'll be the last ones to eat or not eat at all. And it takes me back to how we have over so many years normalized this and see it as a labor of love, and not realizing what sacrifices women are making. So we need to push back against that one. And you reminded me of a high school teacher of mine who told a story that he once asked a little boy, "How do you know that your mother loves your father?" He says, "Well, of course she loves my father, because she always gives him the biggest piece that is available, and the rest of us get the other pieces, and she gets nothing." So I think we need to get to that point where love is not hard and it's not painful, and it doesn't get to a point, it doesn't involve women sacrificing so much of their well-being, of their businesses, of their health, of their hopes, and of their aspirations. And I think that's what this dialogue is about today, to ensure that women's aspirations and dreams are realized, to ensure that our economies on the African continent are also given that much needed life shot. Thanks indeed. It's a pleasure now to welcome Dr. Jemima Njuki, Africa Director for IFPRI and custodian of the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Change Lever of the Food Systems Summit. I'll say that again, Africa Director for IFPRI and custodian of the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Change Lever of the Food Systems Summit. You have the floor.
Thank you, Reddy. That's quite a mouthful. Today I'm going to speak in my role as the custodian for gender equality and women's empowerment for the UN UN Food System Summit. Sorry, all this is quite a mouthful. So thank you so much for having me here. It's actually really exciting to see all the partners that have had very long-term commitment to gender equality in food systems. Really thankful to AGRA for organizing this and recognizing the amount of work that has gone on with the country consultations and making sure that women's voices are heard. And to you, Dr. Kalibata, for having the trust in me that I can actually put gender equality and women's empowerment at the center of the Food System Summit, because that is really, really critical. So one of the things that really strikes me and that has been driving a lot of the efforts to work with everyone in the summit process to make sure that this happens is something that you said already, that for a long time women have been surviving, whether it's struggling to have their businesses survive. And we need to get to a point where women's businesses, women themselves, their health actually thrives. So we've been driven by three main objectives. One is we've been mobilizing the voices of women around the world, not just the continent, so that these voices can be heard. And that's why this particular dialogue is very exciting for me, because it is about women entrepreneurs in the African continent. We've had other dialogues in Latin America in bringing women from Asia together, the Pacific, North Africa, and the Middle East, because these voices need to be heard as part of the Food Systems Summit. The second thing we've been doing, and I'll talk about this very briefly, is to make some of the challenges that you've all talked about. How do we put on the table propositions, coalitions of people that can actually address gender inequalities in the food system? So that's been a very key objective of my team that I've been working with on this. And the third one is also to make sure that all the other propositions, all the other decisions, commitments, outcomes coming out of the summit, that they actually address the needs and priorities of women, that we are looking at what's going to be the impact of this on women. If we are talking about restoring degraded lands, what's going to be the impact on women on that? How do we build women's leadership in that? And this for good reasons that have been mentioned before. One of the things we recognize really is that gender equality and the ability of food systems to deliver nutritious, healthy foods and jobs for everyone in a sustainable way. These two things are really intertwined. And we've got long-term evidence, including from my organization, IFPRI, that shows that countries with high gender inequality are also more food insecure. So the evidence really is there on why we need to do this. But the second reason is this critical role that women play in food systems. Here we are talking about women who are entrepreneurs. I consider women smallholder farmers entrepreneurs as well. They're processors, they are providing labor, they are in the fisheries sector, they are processing forestry products, they are traders, but they are also making decisions on consumption. They are scientists, they're policymakers, but they're doing this facing serious gender barriers and constraints, including access to resources, finance, land rights, social norms, and power and institutional barriers. And we need to be really very intentional in how we address some of these things. The third reason why I'm also very passionate about this is, and Dr. Kalibata has been a huge inspiration for us, is that women's leadership is needed. We cannot just continue to be the producers and the processors. Women's leadership is needed if we are to transform our food systems. Women's voices and experiences need to be brought to the table. And I keep saying, who knows better the barriers and opportunities that are there for women other than women themselves? And so these dialogues have been such a critical part of the puzzle. A lot of the things that are coming out are also very specific to regions. We had an Africa dialogue, and land rights, women's land rights came out as a top priority. So how do we push our policymakers to make sure that land policies are feminist, that they are equitable, that they recognize the rights of women? But we are also recognizing from a very big picture perspective that we are not just talking about sustainable food systems. We have to have food systems that are just, that are equitable, that actually provide, if they're providing jobs, they need to provide jobs and decent jobs for all. And so we've revolved our solutions around 4 key areas. First, women's voice and leadership in food systems. The second one, ensuring access to and control over resources. The third one, ensuring we are addressing social norms, power dynamics in food systems, including in markets, in households, in policymaking processes. And the fourth one, addressing gender in policies and in institutions. I want to mention very briefly 4 propositions on the table that I think would be of interest to the women entrepreneurs and organizations in this particular dialogue. And I mention them because we are at the point where we are actually building coalitions to take some of these forward. And I would really love, especially to have some of the women entrepreneurs as part of those coalitions so that their voices can drive the process. One of them is an alliance of financial institutions that actually design and deliver transformative financial products for women who are in food systems. We recognize the uniqueness and the needs of food systems businesses. And so we would like, and a couple of financial organizations, including organizations like the African Development Bank, are showing a lot of interest in this. The second one I would like to mention is an innovation hub for women-owned businesses, and especially those businesses that are also driving the supply, the processing, the availability of nutritious foods, including our indigenous foods. And the third one is on supporting women to address food loss and waste, and to participate in the circular economy. And the fourth one that I'm really excited about is a global food systems 50-50 initiative to actually ensure that food systems organizations, whether they're government, private sector, donors, that they actually are gender responsive in their leadership. There's parity in their leadership, there's inclusion in their leadership, in their policies, but also in the work that they do. So I invite all of you. I think these propositions are now up online on the food systems community to really be part of these coalitions that are going to drive some of these things forward. We see the summit not as an end in itself, but a way for us to actually galvanize action moving forward. So I'm looking forward to this particular dialogue and to seeing some of the unique propositions that are specific to women entrepreneurs and specific to the continent that we can actually coalesce around and drive forward. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Njuki. I think that you're sharing that sobering reality that countries with more gender inequality are also the most food insecure. So that tells us that there is an intersectionality, and our solutions need to have nuance and respond to these complex situations. Thank you so much for that. We now call upon Michael Michener, Deputy Assistant Administrator, Bureau for Resilience and Food Security, I beg your pardon, let me say that again. Deputy Assistant Administrator, Bureau for Resilience and Food Security, USAID. The floor is yours.
Thank you. One moment, please. My computer has just signed me out. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
These virtual environments do have their problems, don't they?
They do indeed. They do indeed. Yeah. Okay, take your time. We all hear.
My apologies. My apologies. It's such an honor to join Dr. Kalibata, Dr. Njuki, and Dr. Ngiame, the other speakers, partners, and participants today. And Reddy, thanks so much for facilitating. You're also inspirational. It's just such a great honor to be here. And forgive my pronunciation, Dr. Ngiame, my Iowa Midwestern accent also is sometimes difficult and challenging, as well as my last name, I understand. So over the past year and a half, the global pandemic and the ongoing conversation about food systems have helped us appreciate more than ever the ways that food systems around the world need to change, to be more resilient and to meet everyone's needs. In the United States, this conversation is accompanied by the growing understanding that our systems have benefited some groups at the expense of others for far too long, and that we need to act to eliminate discrimination wherever we find it. Not only because it's right, but because it's the best way to achieve stronger and more sustainable progress. Diversity, equity, and inclusion isn't just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. I am thankful to be with you today to hear your ideas on how we can collectively catalyze women's agripreneurship and their role in food trade in Africa, and how we can address the critical and persistent gender gaps women face. At USAID, we are thankful for our longtime partnerships with AGRA and IFPRI as organizations championing inclusive agricultural transformation and food system change that will improve nutrition, create wealth, and bridge gender inequality. We have a responsibility to empower the voices of smallholder farmers, women, and underserved groups to shape the dialogue on food systems at the Food Systems Summit. And we appreciate the key role that AGRA and its local partners are playing to accomplish this. Agriculture and agribusiness offer the greatest promise to bring these transformations, but only if everyone, men and women, have equal access to resources like finance and capital, markets and trade opportunities, and knowledge and information. We know that women and women-owned businesses have been disproportionately affected by the global pandemic, with many losing their savings and their companies. That's why last year, USAID announced an additional $1 million in funding for 10 small and medium-sized agribusinesses to address the economic fallout caused by COVID-19. One of these companies is Real Fruit in Nigeria. It was founded by Affion Williams, who we have actually worked with for years to help scale her business. With this new funding, Real Fruit can still maintain and grow operations, sourcing products from smallholder farmers. Affion is not just creating opportunity for herself, but also creating opportunity in her community during this difficult time. We need more models that promote women's agripreneurship, like AGRA's Value for Her initiative, to highlight more pathways to confront and eliminate gender discrimination and gender gaps, not only in law, but in practice. I hope this dialogue marks the beginning of a new trajectory for support to women in agriculture and food systems and bridging the gender productivity and profitability gaps currently holding back delivering on Malabo and SDG commitments. Thank you, everyone. It's great to join you this morning, and I look forward to the discussion. Reddy, back over to you.
Thank you so much, Michael, and emphasizing collaboration, how important this is, and that what brings us here today is entirely linked to all the goals that we've set for ourselves as peoples of the world, reminding us of the SDGs as well. Very important. Thanks indeed. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm very excited about this next part. I really am, because I'm always inspired by women's leadership, women's endeavors, and also lessons learned from people who are on the ground. What we're going to do for the next couple of minutes, I think 20, 25 minutes, is hear the high level pitch from specific countries. We're going to hear from Uganda, Rwanda. In East Africa, we also have West Africa represented by Mali and Nigeria, and then Southern Africa, where I am in South Africa, but Southern Africa is a region. We're going to hear from Malawi. These are really trailblazing women who have a lot to teach us, but they've got perspectives that could challenge us, that contributes to our content, and that would inform our activism and policy making. So without much ado, let me introduce you to Dr. Gudula Naiga Basaza, who's the co-founder and managing director for Goody Leisure Farm. I'm supposed to stop there, but I think it's important to also share that she's a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and also co-founder of and director of Goody Leisure Farm. And she was also elected as the chairperson of Uganda Women's Entrepreneurs Association Limited, where she continues to just persevere and offer mentorship. We're very honored to have you here, Dr. Gudula Naiga Basaza. Over to you, please. Don't forget to unmute. Dr. Gudula, are you with us?
Thank you very much.
There you are. Thank you.
Yes, it's an honor for me to present the views of women entrepreneurs, market actors, financial institutions, government aid actors regarding value for her, and especially women. We had a meeting and we noted that up to now, in agriculture are women, and 60% of the women are involved in food crops like roots, tubers, and legumes. What is sad is that most of these women are still at the production level of the value chain, which actually makes the smallest profit margin. And normally they produce for the low value market where they do not actually earn a lot of profit from their produce. The main constraints that categories. One is in that is from outside, the gender construct. The dialogues we have that way in affecting the kind to grow our businesses. Low education is still a challenge that limits women to access information. Care still comes up to compete for the time you would have to do your own business. Limited access to a number of resources is still a key challenge. Resources for productivity, like land. In Uganda, only 10% of the titled land belongs to women, and more than 90% of this land belongs to professional women who are not actually involved in agriculture. The other resources that are a challenge are access to finances, technology, networks, and information. Yet, amidst all these challenges, we see opportunities. The value chain gives a lot of possibilities that could break the barriers and constraints the women are facing. There are opportunities to be in input supply. There are opportunities to be in processing, which fetches a bigger margin or profit. We see a lot of technologies that do not require a lot of resources. When you look at aeroponics, aquaponics, even if you didn't have land, you could still produce intensively and earn. We also see a big opportunity in the women groups. And this is something that leads, capacity building is key, and especially looking at the technical confidence to take bold decisions regarding their businesses.
We are struggling with your connectivity, Dr.
Harnessing
I should alert you.
the grouping of women to aggregate them to be able to act in power. Okay, I believe we should go with capacity building to build the woman's resilience, harness the power of the aggregation and the groups, have gender responsible financial services, policies that are formulated should be implemented. Agri-entrepreneurs need them for us to be able to enjoy whatever they bring on the table. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We struggled with the sound there, but we got the gist of your message, and we had a slow network there, but thank you very much for your contributions. We're still getting a lot of your comments in the comment section. I will give due preference to that later on, but right now, let's just hear from our speakers today who are really influential and have got grassroots experiences. We now go to Rwanda. Sharon Akanyana, founder of Issue of Foods, and Sharon is the founder of Issue of Foods Rwanda, a food processing company that processes yogurts and handles post-harvest losses through processing of fruits and vegetables into jam and juices, and they supply markets, hotels, and restaurants. Many lessons to share with us. The floor is yours, Sharon.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm so sorry my video has a problem, but I'll figure it out and see if my face can be visible after this. I just want to thank you for this and all the panelists and participants. Are you hearing me?
Yes, yes, we are. Carry on, please.
Okay. I'm happy to be part of this, and I'm happy to be representing women entrepreneurs in agriculture in Rwanda. And like Gudula said, we also had a session here, and women were represented from all areas in agriculture, entrepreneurship, and some of the women came up with constraints and opportunities that are in the sector, and also what needs to happen for everything to be better. I'll start with the constraints. There are low business aspirations amongst women. Women can have like dreams of becoming business people, especially in agriculture, or even just but they lack the motivation to do so, given that women are have families to take care of, children and all that, and just lack the motivation and the encouragement to do so. Another one is limited technical skills. Gudula talked about it also. Here we'll talk about just mechanized ways of doing things, of growing crops and everything, and in agro-processing also. And also limited access to finance. You'll find that MFIs and banks will require high collateral for you to have access to loans and everything. That was an issue also. And also limited access to networks and information. There are lots of those in the city, but I could say not enough as they should be, but in the villages or outside of Kigali, they're not yet there. Coming to the opportunities, the government of Rwanda and also in collaboration with companies or institutions that do business development, have done a lot to ensure that women are getting the support they need to earn profits and do their best in agriculture or even just agro-processing. Some of the opportunities that are there are new ways of accessing financing, like I said, e.g. warehouse receipt systems, interest-free loans, and building loans with other services. Say, for example, they give you money and you do, and they teach you on how to use that money, how to make great use of it. Another opportunity is addressing systematic barriers to women's engagement. Like I told you, all these policies and laws that are in place to facilitate women in entrepreneurship in the present gender responsive political climate. We also have partnerships to support women entrepreneurships who face specific disadvantages. Here we'll talk about women who are HIV positive and those who are refugees. We've seen, at least in Rwanda and in Kigali, we've seen initiatives that care specifically for refugee women who want to be entrepreneurs, especially in the agriculture sector. So what needs to happen for everything to go well and for these women, for us to be facilitated even better? There needs to be focus on product quality, high quality products. You've seen that imported products, say in the supermarkets and everywhere, people will tend to get those ones and not care much for the ones that are made in Rwanda or even just made in Africa or in the region, because the quality still has a problem. And even just high quality machinery to make the work faster, say in farms and growing crops. We also there has to be focus on capacity development. So instead of focusing on soft skills, but go beyond that and do mentoring, other skills development, and just following up. And also the last two would be using easily accessible modes of info on businesses. Like I told you, of recent, we've seen how people are using online, just meetings online and everything. Most of everything is done online, and that's good for the people who live in the cities in Kigali, but outside of Kigali, and I would imagine outside of Kampala or Nairobi and elsewhere, it's a problem for rural women to access all these technologies and everything. So why not make it easier for people to have all this business information, and in the agricultural sector, especially on radios, maybe mobile phones, which don't have to be smart ones, and just learning events and platforms. The last one would be, what needs to go would be gender responsive financial and business support services to encourage financial institutions like MFIs and businesses to develop packages and products that meet specific needs for women. I would say, like I said before, maybe low interest loans and so on. I hope I used my time very well. Thank you very much.
Of course, you used it so very well, and your practical solutions and suggestions of what can be done now to unlock these blocks. We really do appreciate it. Okay, that is it then from East Africa. Now we go to Mali. And in Mali, I introduce you to Sinabo Dieng Traore, founder and CEO of Maya Enterprises operating in Mali and beyond. Now, Maya is a food processing company that's specializing in grocery store products. They use an inclusive model through partnership with farmers in Mali. Really inspirational model as well. The floor is yours. Remember to unmute yourself.
Hi everyone, and a privilege to speak out for the thousands of women engaged in agribusiness in Mali. So my name is Seynabou Dieng, and 4 years ago, I left my job to dedicate my life to agribusiness. So I created Maya, which is a food processing business dedicated to value local cereals and spices farmed by 3,000 small-scale farmers around the country. Today, we are proud to distribute our products in 200 points of sales in 4 different West African countries. And I'm currently in Dakar, where I'm opening a new subsidiary. So, you know, agriculture is the cornerstones of Mali's economy. Mali is a big country and we have a lot of space for farming. However, both men and women face different challenges engaging in agribusiness. And most of the challenges, the main constraints are the limited access to technical skills, of course, lack of access to assets such as land, and in our case, a lack of access to processing resources, so factories and equipment. We also have a lack of access to networks and information. And in Mali, only 5% of women have access to internet, which is a pity. However, the country offers huge opportunity in agriculture, especially in the nutritional and vegan products today. And hopefully for the past 10 years, we as private sector people, we have noticed that the government of Mali and the partners are really doing a great job to support the sector. We also noticed a lot of private sector engagement activities to empower women-led agribusinesses. And we are very thankful for that. But it's still not enough. And we still need to boost the sector by, like the others said, gender responsive financial and business support services. And I will emphasize on the trade aspect. So because I export my products in 4 different countries, I can tell you that it's a big challenge to take my products from Bamako to Dakar. It takes me 10 days, which is just crazy. And also something that I really want to share with you is my feeling is that we need to be part of the policies that you are making for women. All the time we have new programs, new policies, but most of the time, those policies doesn't fit our needs and our situation. So I really want to advocate on the fact that women are ready now to be part of the policy making with the partners like AGRA, for example. And for me, it's all that I wanted to share with you. And also to tell you that there is something unique happening in the agribusiness sector in Africa. A new revolution led by women who dedicated their life and resources to use agribusiness to change the narrative of the continent. We don't need to be convinced anymore. We know that production and using local resources will take us out of poverty, but we still need your help. And we think that we can change the life of millions of farmers in our communities. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me, for listening to me.
Thank you so very much, Sinabu, and also your analysis of the challenges that lie ahead. And I love that you use the word crazy, because it is crazy that it would take 10 days for the products to reach where they ought to reach. And it emphasizes the theme that we keep going back to, that some of these barriers, or if not all of them, are policy choices. There are choices. They didn't just spring up naturally. So if they are man-made choices, they have to be reversed, and there's got to be political will and intention to do so. Thank you for reminding us of that. But also to create space at the table. Nothing about us without us. That's the message I got from you. Thanks indeed. And we move from Mali to Nigeria, where we are joined by Mrs. Ajibike Saratu. And you will be talking to Oluwat, I beg your pardon if I mispronounce your surname. I'm going to start again. Ajibike Saratu Oluwatimilehin. And you are a serial entrepreneur, a leader of women, and an administrator per excellence, I am told. And I would love to hear from you as a business leader what your contributions are today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here. I'm unable to start my video. It says the host has stopped your video, so I don't know if I can, they could let my video work. All right. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, once again, and I'm glad to be here. Presently, Nigeria is a very unique place that we all know, and 37% of the agricultural labor force is made up of women, averagely, and we have about 51% in the southern part, and about 32% in the northern part. And this statistics is unique because of the socio-cultural differences, the religion, and the educational differences. The gender gap in agribusiness in Nigeria is attributed to so many constraints. There are so many things that are holding the women bound, ranging from accessing productive resources to finances, and also the ability to be competitive in the global market. However, these constraints have been there, but sincerely, COVID-19 has really escalated it, and it's really obvious now that women are really struggling in their business, particularly those in the agri enterprise. And these constraints are not limited, but to a few that I would like to highlight. I would like to say that there's a struggle for women in accessing finances, because most times, most of them don't even have what it takes to be bankable. And sometimes they don't even have this information on how to access this finance. Let me make an example of recently, Nexim Bank launched a package, and they call it YF, Women and Youth Export Facility. I was there at the launch, and after launching this particular unique product for women, the next point we heard is that it's collateralized. We were asked, my organization was asked to profile some women to access this particular facility. And as I speak to you, we've not been able to push in 5% of the women that showed interest on that day because they do not have collateral. So there's this limited access to this finance due to the collateral and also the assets that they are requiring, both from the commercial bank and even the government facilities by themselves. Also, we have the barrier of lack of networks and information. There's a need for us to strengthen collaboration using the existing platforms. There's nothing new anybody wants to build out there, but you can actually leverage on the existing platforms. And if these women do not have the information that there are existing platforms that they can come and collaborate with, they will still keep seeing themselves as competitors. And we're not supposed to see ourselves as competitors, rather we're supposed to see ourselves as collaborators, because when we work together, we work far. So there's a need for us to strengthen collaboration between existing platforms, such as the 50 Million African Women Speak platform that I represent. Other platforms like AWEP, we have the Value for Her that has just been launched and is doing exploits. We have She Trade. We also have the ANWN, amongst many other women groups that are out there. There's also the need there's a limit in the education and the technical skills for women in agribusiness. And this particular constraint can be combated by increasing women participation for capacity building and also mentoring them. That is by getting women that have gone ahead of them in a particular kind of business, women that are more experienced to come and mentor the younger women that are just coming up. Existing and successful women entrepreneurs are coming when we bring them together to mentor the younger ones that are startups. Thereby, they are able to prevent them from falling into the same mistakes that they've made. This will increase the earning power and also the success stories in the agribusiness for women. I also like to look at the area of gender responsiveness and business support. There's a need to encourage financial and non-financial organizations to help develop these women on how to structure their business, how to get the right documentation for their business, how to make them competitive, and how to make their business to be standardized so that they can be able to play on the global food trade system. Most times you see women in Nigeria play at the local level, and the local level is saturated. but we need them to get their business to be standardized so that they can also play at the global level. Most time is because they don't have the adequate documentation, and it's because they do not have the information. They don't have the idea. They need this sensitization. They need this capacity building. They need this mentoring to get them ready. One of my favorite saying is that preparation meets opportunity. Most times when opportunity comes, the women are not prepared for it. I also like to talk about advocacy and policy implementation. We need to develop and roll out national and state level advocacy strategies on how to close the gender gap at all levels. At all levels. We need to take out the terms and conditions that is restricting these women. You know, I said something, they launched a beautiful product, but there was something restricting the women from accessing that product. So we need to take out all these restrictions that are stopping the women from accessing the public and private finances that will help them scale up their businesses. Also, we also need to form, leverage, the women need to leverage on aggregation. If you find out most times at the agribusiness sector, everyone is facing one particular position. Everyone is facing one thing. There's a need to aggregate and harmonize them together in clusters. We put those that are in the farming, we put those that are in the marketing, we put those that are in the value addition part of it, so that you are not seeing them repeating the same thing. So if this particular cluster is into production, you be in production. We have those that have the skills for marketing, and they just pass it on to those that are in the clusters for marketing. They pass it on to those that are in the clusters for value addition. You need to harmonize. We need to harmonize ourselves and no longer be working as independent people, because we are not going far and we are not making impact. Lastly, I'd like to talk about post-harvest loss and wastage. This cannot be overemphasized. You see that the women do not have the machineries, the machines to be able to process this agricultural produce when they are in season. So you see lots of wastages. They don't know how to store them. They don't even have an idea that sometimes these machines don't cost so much. But because there is no information telling them that to get a dehydrator, you can actually get a dehydrator for 250,000 naira or even 100,000 naira. The moment you just mention dehydrator, the woman just goes down and just say, oh, a dehydrator is 1 million naira. And before you know it, she's not even thinking of scaling up her business because there's no information. But when we harmonize them, when we bring in mentors, when we bring in experts to also help these women, they are able to scale up their business and prevent all these post-harvest losses and wastages by processing the items. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your passion. We appreciate your insights as well. We are running out of time and we're running behind schedule. So we're going to hear the last of the unique country pitches. We've heard from everybody else, and now it's time to hear from Malawi. And I am going to ask all the speakers from now on to please just keep it brief so that we have time to go into our breakaway sessions, but not only to go into the breakaway sessions, to get the most important feedback that will come out of that. And I'll tell you more about where you can find your own unique session. Without much ado, let's hear from Towera Jakalasi, founder of Natural Limited, a supplier of baobab juice, oil, powder, and cake. This is under the brand name Kati Kati, and also MD of Tools for Enterprise and Education in Malawi. The floor is yours. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hello. Hello.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, my name is Tawela. I am an entrepreneur and trainer, but I'm also a number of programs as a lead. So I'll share with you my experience with as a gender lead, but also as an entrepreneur. As a gender lead, my role has been to ensure that the from market.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tawera. Your line is very, very bad. Can I ask you to close the video? Maybe it will improve. Maybe if we just shut the video and just leave the voice. Let's hear what happens.
Okay, hello, how is that?
That's much better. Let's see how far we can get.
Okay, fine, thank you. So I was saying my role as a gender lead has been to ensure that market systems are equally to women, men, as well as youth, but also to ensure that consideration, but also to ensure that the programs and business activities do not bring programs that do harm to women or displace women from the market. So I will share with you my experiences working as a journalist, but also working as an entrepreneur. Working in the soybean sector in Malawi, women are responsible most of the time for the extraction of the soya, and this is a process that is time consuming. It involves a lot of energy, but it's also low paid. Then the design for a cash ratio came into being to address the constraints that women were facing as far as addressing activity was concerned. But when the design and the product came on the market, it looked very masculine because the perception is that men are the ones that are operators. So the women were not able to access and use the machinery.
So I apologize so much. I apologize. The line is so bad. We can barely make out what you are saying. Please accept my profuse apologies. I think what we can do is ask you to please make your contribution in written form, if that can be jotted down somewhere, and then I can present it maybe towards the end and share with everyone what your message was. The line is so bad that it's not salvageable, and I apologize for that, but perhaps we can use another medium to ensure that your contribution is not only reflected on, but that it is, it becomes part of our the final communique of this high-level dialogue. Please accept my apologies. We are moving along, and this time around you are all moving to breakout rooms. I'm sure when you registered, you chose your breakout rooms, and let me remind you of the topics and how you're going to get there. So there are 10 of them: women's business segments, business leadership, business growth and formalization, gender responsive business environment, women's associations in agri-entrepreneurship, women's access to high value markets, women's access to innovative and affordable finance and capital, women in cross-border and food trade, women's access to mechanization and digital technologies, women's access to information and business network. Those are the breakout rooms. And how are you going to access your breakout room? It's very, very simple. The breakout rooms are going to pop on the screen. So you just click on the session that you have chosen. It's popping on the screen. You click on the session the way that you registered, and you will be in that room. And again, there, please be mindful of time. We no longer have 40 minutes in which to deliberate. We've got 30 minutes. We're cutting it down. So click on your session right now and start your deliberations, after which we will have the feedback session. Breakout rooms, click on there. While you are doing that, I see all your chats and the information that you've shared with us, and these will also be reflected. 30 minutes for breakout sessions. Thank you. Okay, I believe you're all back into the room. I hope you enjoyed your breakout sessions, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Now, here's the big challenge. We are way behind schedule, which means that I'm going to have to be the headmistress again and really cut the time that we had allocated for your feedback. So if you are the facilitator, start thinking about a really creative and succinct way of giving us your feedback. Not everything that you discussed in your breakout, but rather identify your 2 top messages or takeaways or solutions, whatever they may be, just 2 quick ones. And let's see if we can get through 10 facilitators that we still have this afternoon, and then have our wrap up as well. So without much ado, let's hear from the women's business segment, and the facilitator there is Michael Eric. Michael, you have 1 minute to just tell us how the deliberations went. Go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Reddy. So very quickly, I think out of the three questions, the first one was really trying to identify sort of the main socioeconomic characteristics affecting women. And we saw that, you know, a lot of them need to start at home, have to sort of address their own household needs. And that's how a lot of these enterprises begin. So with those beginnings and those restrictions as well, but that we're also seeing over time more progress as you know, women are evolving in terms of the type of organizations that are being launched and their presence just generally in the value chain and socially more generally. But in terms of, you know, what the key needs are for growth, it's clear that, you know, education, access to finance, technology, assets is really key. And I think that some of the three main points in terms of the types of support mechanisms that were required was, first of all, you know, creating networks, getting women to work together more often, more effectively if possible, letting them know where the resources that already exist are so that they can access them, also allowing them literacy in terms of how to use the existing tools. And then finally, there's really just the goal of the role of government and having more programs that target women at the country level. So I'll stop there.
It was absolutely excellent. So it can be done. You literally took 1 minute. So let's go to Matt Davis to report back for us on the business leadership. The enterprise success is in part hidden in the capability of the leader. That was the theme. Go for it, Matt.
Yeah, similar to Mike, there's the kind of main barrier that people identified is that most women in leadership positions don't have access to role models, skills, tools that they can use to really emerge out of what often is culturally stifling their leadership skills. And then we have a person we were talking about how use of technology, and especially COVID, as we start to kind of have to move a lot of what we used to do in physical format to technology, there's a huge opportunity, great opportunity to connect with other women leaders in agribusiness around the continent, to learn from them, to get them to present what they did and how they broke free and really became great business leaders. So I thought that was really exciting. And that's our summary.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Matt. I'm going to ask the speakers to, you know, if we're having some connectivity issues, closing the video just makes things easier, but we got all of that, Matt. Thanks so much. Mejabin Alarakia, gender responsive business environment. What are the challenges? How do we achieve that? Go for it.
Hi, good, thank you. So we went very quickly through what we, you know, and I won't present in terms of questions that we discussed, but I think the main points of what we said was that women are a diverse group, even if you're looking at the micro SMEs, and this means that even the solutions that are developed need to take that into account. We then were looking at the solutions that should be developed, and we said that they should be evidence-based, and there is a rich diversity of data, and where there isn't, there should be more collected. But also that, you know, we seem to constantly come back to this challenge about collateral, but what we really need for women is an alternative system. The land collateral doesn't work, the money capital collateral doesn't work, they need other types, and this is, to be truly gender responsive, we need something that is new and really built for women, rather than trying to adapt what there is to meet women's needs. In terms of the informal systems, one of the main things that we discussed was promoting women's roles, promoting men's participation in care work and community building, which is often sort of seen as a women's role, but we really need to have positive role modeling around this. And then also promoting the women so that we can promote the role of the prominent women, so that they may also be able to be role models for those who may be aspiring to do this. And finally, one of the key points that we discussed was how the accounting profession values or accounts for what is considered value. And this kind of links to some of the unpaid care work that we were discussing, and how GDP is measured, and how do we actually calculate some of these women's roles into the value propositions, particularly for companies, so that it is included, and will be more of an incentive for companies to have family-friendly policies, and also have.
Okay, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we are over time, and your line, we keep losing you. We keep losing you. I apologize for that, Ms. Jabin, and you were on your last point, so we got the bulk of what you were saying. Business growth and formalization, Ruramuso Mashumba.
All right, thank you so much. So I will not open my video because I'm at the farm and I don't have good connectivity. So I won't touch much on the issues because they were very similar to the other groups of access to challenges of capital, capacity buildings and markets. So what we came up with were to support women businesses. We say that we needed to facilitate the process for these women entrepreneurs, and that we need to also help them understand the legal contents in for the businesses to operate, because we were saying that if women businesses register, they have more chances of having access to finance, to the market. So really the challenges can be reduced by them formalizing. And then we came up with some very interesting ideas where we say that maybe we can have priority registration days, and businesses can register, and banks set up together in local markets. So now the banks are bringing the formalization to the way the women are, and then they can offer women one-stop shop to register. And maybe things like Women Wednesday, where they can actually, where women actually have priority to go and register. And then we also said we need to provide incentives for women to register, as well as organizations to support women to register. And we said that we need to also mobilize businesses into cooperatives, as it's sometimes there's no need for one woman to register a business, but she can register as an association. And we also touched on policy and saying that how can policy support women ownership, and in order to support the growth mindset for women entrepreneurs. So I think my 1 minute is up. I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You did great. Really appreciate it. And then we move from you, Ruramuso, to Gloria Atuhere. Please talk to us about women's access to high value markets.
Thank you, Reddy. So great discussions from our group. One of the things that came out, number one, was really that we need to know the market. We need to know the market and produce for the market. That in a way will, of course, sustain the value, but also manage the risk. But that involves also a lot of information gathering, because you really have to do a lot to dig up what your market is looking for, not just for the product, but also the regulatory frameworks in some of the markets or destination markets. So that was the big one there. On financing, the issue came up on exploiting or leveraging on online crowding as a financial solution. It's already working in Nigeria. So the question was, can it work in other parts of Africa? And if so, how do we engage? Because there's, of course, needs to understand the legislation and all that may be required in that space, but at least there are already solutions in that space, and how can we scale that up across Africa? Of course, the issue of capacity building remains at the core. For access to information, value addition, supporting backward linkages. Someone in Uganda said she has challenges, just helping her smallholder farmers comply to standards. So how do we keep that? But on the other side, there's also opportunities. There's people who offer training, specialized, depending even on the segment of the market that you're working in. So that is available. So we just have to bridge the gap for who has the solution and who has the challenge, and how do we meet that? So information, I think, is going to be at the core of the solution across the board.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We move from you to Nixon Gecheo to talk to us about women's access to mechanization and digital technologies. 1 minute.
Thank you very much. One of the we identified a number of things. One of the things we identify is capacity building and awareness of technology and mechanization is critical. Women in agri-tech also should deliberately target women farmers to build capacity in the use of technology and access to information. The other one we identify is the lack of access to finances. That is why women are not really going for this mechanization or equipment tools. But the way to cure it, we say that women should come together and form cooperatives to leverage on their strength to actually increase access to capital and therefore take advantage of the financial muscle. And through cooperative, they can actually contribute more funds to acquire equipment. The other one is that the manufacturers should also consider putting feminine touch to their mechanization so that the machines do not look scary to women. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Hafsat Abiola, Women's Associations in Agri-Entrepreneurship. Your 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much. I want to say that I had an awesome group and I'm really grateful for the invitation to participate. I'm timing myself, so I want to be exact. So we were women associations in agripreneurship, and we're looking at what are the opportunities that exist for women to raise their voices, and how can they go from this membership in these platforms to impact. So we looked at the opportunities and we found that with COVID, we see increasing connectivity, which makes women more powerful. There are platforms like Nurturing Africa, Africa Women Agri Network, Value for Her, hosted by AGRA. But we were now looking at how do we get from these platforms to impact. And we found 3 key messages. The first message is that we need to make agriculture sexy again. And to make it sexy, we want to make sure that those platforms actually have information that is really useful to the community, that they know they have, I have 5 seconds, I'm going to run over, so that they have information about grants and training, that they appeal to younger members, that
Time up, I'm afraid. You did great. I'm sorry we have to move on. I'm sorry.
Okay, but let me just say that we also have to organize women, that they have to be strong at the local level, regional level, and then continental level. And to be strong at the local level, they should not be taking money from government. They should have membership dues and strong governance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well done. Librata Mohati, Women's Access to Innovative and Affordable Finance and Capital.
Okay, thank you very much. I will not switch on my video. We dealt with the innovation, the need for women to access finance that is innovative and that is also affordable. And the first thing we took note of is that women have been exposed and have been exploited by expensive financial institutions. And therefore we were in agreement that there is need for women to be given an alternative financial services. And we said we need to look at financial services that work, not just those that are proposed to work, but those that are practically working. And we looked at table banking as one of the key financial services that have worked in East Africa. We looked at village savings associations that have also worked in East Africa. And we said these are very critical because they offer not just other collateral like land, and probably land that women do not have, but they offer what we call social capital, which is easily available to women that have gotten used to working in groups over time. So we propose that it is important to look at financial services that are friendly to women, and table banking particularly seems to come up as one such model. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so very much. Thank you. And we move from you to Clara Colina to talk to us very quickly, women in cross-border and food trade.
Thank you so much. So I think there was 2 key messages coming from our group. One, that women are particularly vulnerable when it comes to food trade because they're more involved in those value chains that are more heavily dependent on imports. And 2, they're more involved in informal food trade, which means they are disproportionately affected by corruption, harassment, but also gender-based violence. And in terms of the opportunities, the biggest one surfacing seem to be around aligning on simplified trade standards and procedures that can ease the movements of goods and services. So how can we really get to a consolidated common continental framework that is adopted by multiple countries? And how do we actually make sure that we build a local institutional and agricultural capacity to be able to meet those standards?
Very much. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Okay, our last feedback session or speaker, Ranjita Posker, Women's Access to Information and Business Network. Go for it.
Thank you. That was a wonderful group. I'll jump right into the three key solutions that we came up with that we think we should be focusing on. To be able to embed the women entrepreneurs in business and information networks, digital platforms seem to be the way to go, where you are connecting them to information sources, be it universities, research, extension, but also services and businesses, in the private sector, connecting to services, input companies, etc. But while doing that, being very mindful of the digital divide, the access to literacy, the technology literacy, and the privilege of time that only some women might have to engage effectively in these. And just providing the digital platforms isn't going to be adequate. That need to be combined with sensitization of these women on the importance of these, but also capacity building on how to make the most of these. The second one that we talked about was, there's a lot of others who might not have access to these. How do we develop capacities and resource persons within the communities who can provide this information, knowledge, but also help broker relationships, provide it as a paid service or otherwise. So again, that's another model that we should try. And the third one on the information provision was about, or the information networks was about collaborating more proactively with media to see how we can provide the necessary information in local languages that women who don't have access to these other platforms can actually tap into. That's it from us.
Thank you very much. Very useful. Geez, you all experts at getting to the point. I really appreciate it, and sorry that it had to be rushed. We do apologize that we are 18 minutes behind schedule, but hopefully this is not the end. All those fantastic and pertinent points that you deliberated upon will find expression at the next gathering or even in your regional networks as well. It was a pleasure to be your moderator. Thank you so very much for this invitation. And I now hand over to Ms. Vanessa Adams, Vice President, Strategic Partnerships at AGRA, to do the vote of thanks and closure for us. Bye-bye.
Well, Reddy, I don't know how to follow up after your excellent moderation and keeping us on track, and also keeping so many people engaged, even though we're 20 minutes over our suggested end time. So it's been a phenomenal day with all of you. I want to reiterate what Jemima and Agnes said when we first joined this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. And that's that the time is now. We're heading into an incredible opportunity this year with the Food Systems Summit at the in the next few months. And this is contributing recommendations as well as all of your voices, the country case studies, the challenges, and the opportunities towards the food systems dialogues. And those are going to be highlighted in a compendium which will be presented to member states of the UN as a part of the food systems process. So we think that's incredibly important. Next, I think many of you are eager to know what's next and how actually you might yourselves find opportunities and benefit from what is coming in the next few months. I don't know, I've just tried to share my screen. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, yes, I am. We are all.
Great. So we've started to look at all the upcoming events and create a bit of a roadmap. How can you benefit over the next few months yourselves organizationally and join in the momentous pathway towards what we're seeing as the opportunity to deliver on Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. We hope that 30 countries in Africa, at least 30 technical partners, will join forces and find a transformative way to impact the lives of at least 30 million smallholder farmers on the continent. And we see that coming through in various ways. Through, as you know, upgrading the capacity of individual companies to be profitable, through raising the voices on African continental free trade and trade opportunities for women, as many of you said, through the Food Action Alliance flagships, through also the upcoming African Green Revolution Forum, which is going to be announced this week, and I'm pre-announcing it on this moment here, which is September 7th to 10th, and at which we'll have the Agribusiness Deal Room, which many of you are welcome to join and hear about as well next week, and join in the search for sustainable sourcing opportunities. But that's not enough. We also think that women leaders, women's voices need to continue to be rising up, rising to the top. And so we hope that you will all join in the African Leadership for Agriculture platform, which is a new center which has actually been launched. The first group of women leaders has just joined that initiative as well. So this is just a very, very practical vision of what's possible. Some of the opportunities that we're doing our best to try and provide in the coming months. We know that, of course, it's absolutely impossible to transform what has been centuries of constraints and cultural barriers. And yet we firmly continue to believe and see every day that these changes can and do happen. In fact, recovering from COVID has taught us so much. Look, we're meeting online and hundreds of us are talking to each other in ways we would have never dared to do even 2-3 years ago. So I welcome all of your revolutionary and transformative, inspirational comments, thoughts. I hope you're tweeting like crazy. Invest in women, invest in Africa. And that if you haven't registered for the phenomenal platforms such as Value for Her and the 50 million women and all of the wonderful work that you're all providing support to in your daily lives, I hope that you've joined forces and that we'll work together today and see incredible commitments in the coalitions in the coming months. So I expect to hear a lot more from all of you. I want to again congratulate Dr. Jemima, if she's still on the line. I think she had to leave, for her incredible, thoughtful publications and remarks, and continue to appreciate the tremendous work that is coming through. I saw African Development Bank online, and they have an incredible initiative for women in Africa, also ongoing, AFAWA. So we're pleased as well to see that even though we didn't actually include the leadership of African member states and countries, that while we've been engaging together, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia and our chair of our board, Haile Mariam Desalegn, has actually been out in the field this week in Kenya with and talking to women farmers. So we do know and believe that the leadership is supporting and continues to support this fabulous effort and initiative. I think that if we don't see $1 trillion mobilized for investment in innovative finance and women agripreneurs across Africa, we haven't done our jobs this year. So keep on lobbying, get out there and fight for it as you do every day. Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, let's take a picture. Everyone can undo their cameras very quickly, your videos very quickly. We're supposed to take a picture. Yes, 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 just very, very quickly. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are we all ready for the photo opportunity before we all say goodbye? Video, video, video. Big smile.
Yes, it's done.
Okay, I believe the picture is done. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much to all of you.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Thank you all.
Bye,
Thank you.